In this movie, I'll show you how to adjust a few key preference settings. And while you don't have to make these changes, it's totally up to you, I think they'll benefit your experience inside the program. And they'll ensure that you and I have the same experience, which is always a good thing for strengthening the bond between teacher and student. So notice over here in the layers panel that I have this very dinky thumbnail in front of the background item. If you want your thumbnails to be larger so that you can really see the contents of each and every layer, then right-click in this empty area below the background and then choose either medium thumbnails or large thumbnails, which is the way that I'm going to work. And now we have this nice big meaty thumbnail so that we can see what we're doing. Now, it's very possible that if you're working inside of a document that contains lots of layers, that you're not going to see an empty area in the layers panel. For example, if I switch over to this image here, you can see that all of the room is well taken up, in which case you want to go over to this little icon here. Notice that it's on the same level as the word layers. That represents the flyout menu. So if you click on it, you're going to bring up a flyout menu for this panel. Now, your menu is going to be a single column. You're not going to have closed tab group all by itself over here on the right-hand side. That's just a function of the screen resolution we use to record these videos. What you want to do is drop down to this command right there, Panel Options. Go ahead and choose it, and that'll bring up this dialog box right here. And notice that we've got a bunch of different sunflowers that are available to us. For the biggest thumbnail, you want to select the biggest sunflower. You can go, by the way, with none if you like. And notice if I click OK that we no longer have any thumbnails whatsoever. We're just seeing paintbrushes for any pixel-based layers. We're seeing these little squares for the vector-based layers and so on. However, that's not the way I want to work. So I'll click on that flyout menu and once again choose Panel Options. And now I'm going to click on the biggest sunflower to select it. Now there's a couple of other changes I want you to make inside this dialog box. Notice these checkboxes down here. You want to turn off Add Copy to Copied Layers and Groups, because otherwise, every time you copy a layer, it's going to have the word copy after it. And the fact is, you already know that you copied it because you just got done doing it. So you don't really need that word. And pretty much 9 out of 10 people who use Photoshop go ahead and turn this checkbox off. Then we have this option right there, Use Default Masks on Fill Layers. And my suggestion is you turn that off as well, because otherwise you're just cluttering up the layers panel each and every time you create a solid fill, gradient, or pattern layer. And then go ahead and click OK. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this really colorful image here. And incidentally, if you're wondering where these images come from, they all hail from the Fotolia Image Library, about which you can learn more and get special deals, if you like, at fotolia.com/Deke. In any event, what I'd like you to do now is click on the Channels tab to switch over to this panel, and what we're seeing is the various color channels that make up an RGB image, and we'll be discussing that in more detail in later chapters. But basically what we've got is the composite RGB view, which is the colorful view of the image, as well as each of the independent channels that make up an RGB image, which are the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. And this is the standard in the world of digital photography. The problem is, once again, these channel thumbnails are so tiny. To make them larger, right-click in this empty area once again and choose Large, and we will end up with these nice large thumbnails. And then click on RGB at the top of the list in order to switch back to the composite view. Now click on the next tab over Paths, and you'll see that we have a couple of vector-based path outlines inside of this image, but their thumbnails are dinky as well. So to make them larger, I'll right-click in this empty area and choose Large, at which point I can now see that I have 2 different circular paths, one for the left lens and then 2 for the right lens, which tells me that I made a mistake there. So I'll just go ahead and click on right lens to make it active. And if you look very closely, you can see some path outlines around both of these yellow sunglass lenses. To get rid of the extra one, go ahead and select this black arrow, which represents the path selection tool here inside the toolbox, and then click on the outline of that left lens to select this path outline, and then just press the backspace key or the delete key on the Mac to get rid of it, and you'll then see the thumbnail update here inside the Paths panel. All right, now I'm going to click off that path down here in this empty area to hide it, and then I'll switch back to the Layers panel. All right, there are just a couple more changes I want you to make. Go up to the Window menu and choose Adjustments to bring up the Adjustments panel right there. then click on its flyout menu icon in order to bring up its flyout menu, and choose this command that has a check mark in front of it, Add Mask by Default. That will ensure that you don't create a mask for each and every one of your adjustment layers. And we'll see what that means in a future chapter. But for now, it's just a good idea. Again, it leads to less clutter inside the Layers panel. And you can always add your own masks later if you want to. So go ahead and choose that command to turn it off. And then you can hide the Adjustments panel either by clicking on this double arrow icon or by clicking on its icon here inside the column of panel icons. And then finally, go ahead and select this next tool down, the one under the arrow tool, which is the rectangle tool. If you're not seeing the rectangle tool, go ahead and click and hold on that tool icon and choose rectangle tool from the flyout menu. And then just go ahead and draw a rectangle any old location inside the image. And did you see what happened? The Properties panel sprung up on screen. And that's going to happen every time, by the way. So if I hide the panel and then draw another rectangle, up comes the Properties panel again. It's not really essential that you see this panel. In fact, 90% of the time, you really don't want to see it. To prevent it from springing up in the future, click on its flyout menu icon and choose this command right there, Show on Shape Creation, to turn it off. And then go ahead and hide that panel. And now notice that the next time that I draw a rectangle, the Properties panel does not spring up. If indeed you do want to access the Properties panel, all you have to do is go to the window menu and choose Properties. And again, we'll see what that looks like in a future chapter. All right, now I don't want all of these rectangles, so I'm just going to go up to the File menu and choose the Revert command in order to restore the saved version of the image like so. And then the last thing you want to do is save these changes that you just made. Now, Photoshop doesn't save its preference settings until you quit the program, which means if we were to crash right now or in the next couple of days or whenever, then we would lose all those changes we just made. So what you have to do to save the changes, as counterintuitive as it may be, is go to the File menu, that's going to be the Photoshop menu on the Mac, and then choose the Exit command, that's going to be the Quit command on the Mac. Or you can press Control-Q here on the PC, Q for quit, by the way, or Command-Q for quit on the Mac. And that will go ahead and quit the program and return you to whatever application is running in the background. In my case, Adobe Bridge. And that's how you adjust a few key preference settings as well as save your changes inside Photoshop.